So let's hear more on developing the youth for tomorrow's economy from a person who's a director of National Trade Union Congress, which is NTUC. He is presently a board member of NTUC Links Private Limited and NTUC Club. He is also a board member of the Infocom Media Development Authority and Enterprise Singapore. He is the honorary chairman of the Asia Pacific Advisory Board of Global Chief Marketing Officer Council, a keynote speaker at regional conferences and writes in selected business publications. Please welcome, with a big round of applause, Mr. Vivek Kumar.
Good morning, everyone. I feel quite underqualified to be here, to be honest, because the future no longer belongs only to those who have experience, but it belongs to those who are willing to experiment. And after listening to my previous speaker, the youth today are a lot more willing to experiment, and therefore the future belongs to you, which is fantastic. But I'll share with you my experience and what is it that we have kind of gone through. Before that, I wanted to share with you something that I feel our youth are going to need in the future more than some of the technologies that I'm going to talk about. And I wanted to share with you the story of my mother. Half a century ago, in the state of Bihar in India, for those of you who are aware of the geography of India, when she got married to my father, she had just graduated from her senior secondary. And after that, even while she had 3 sons, and she was the caring kind of wife and daughter-in-law for the family, she went on to complete her graduation, which was the first year you have to give an exam, the second year, the third year. And that was not enough. After that, she went on to do her master's. And supported by my father and my grandfather, she went on to complete her doctorate. So if there is one thing I can share with you for the future, what you will need is also a huge amount of resilience to be willing to say, I will create a path where there was none, or I will be willing to not give up and believe in myself. Now, this is our experience in terms of how the labor movement is trying to disrupt ourselves. The future of technology. And obviously, there is a fair amount of concern in terms of what is going to happen with artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on taking over. And this is a pretty valid concern, because the rate at which technology is evolving, it can do a number of jobs which are repetitive. It can do a number of jobs that don't require creativity and new thinking, that in answer to the previous question we spoke about. And yes, there are going to be jobs that are going to disappear. Yeah, and the numbers are quite substantial, but there are also going to be new jobs that are going to be created. This is the second part that I like to talk about, however. A lot of technology that is being created is also created to augment humans. The mobile phone with which many of you are taking photos now, we all know has got more computing power than what was used to initially send rockets to the moon. The new iPhone X Max that has come up has got half terabyte of data, which is absolutely amazing. And we know this is only going to grow. So a number of these things are used to augment our abilities. And therefore, it is only going to help those who are not fearful of it, but who are willing to work with technology and who are willing to experiment with technology. Does any of you remember the movie Matrix, the very first one? The youth, do you remember? Have you watched it? Yeah? And how about the rest of us? Okay, just a show of hands. How many of us watched the first Matrix? Okay, many of us have watched. Do you remember that scene where Morpheus is locked up in the facility of the people, and Trinity and Mr. Neo are trying to help him escape from there? Do you remember that scene? And do you remember there is a helicopter, but Mr. Neo doesn't know how to fly the helicopter. And what does he do? Does anybody remember?
He acquires the skills.
Sorry?
He acquires the skills.
How?
Remotely. In Matrix, not everything is understood.
Not everything is understood. How about you? It downloads it. That's exactly what you said, which is remotely the skill is downloaded into his brain. And yes, much of that I don't understand as well. But do you know there is a startup today that is actually working on a chip that can be inserted into our brain, where actually these skill sets can be acquired the night before the morning that you have got to go and do your job. So all this is no longer science fiction, and this startup has been funded, I think, $25 million or something like that. There's a huge amount of work going on there. Elon Musk is talking about it, and you know something that he talks about is going to happen somewhere down the stage in the future. So that is what it is about human augmentation, and we need to be prepared for it. We need to be willing to work with it. But there is another piece about human augmentation which will be good for us to bear in mind. You know, I was on a panel with the managing director of Citibank, and he shared a very interesting example. He said, you know, the jobs that are today going in Citibank to people are those people who have got huge amount of emotional intelligence. So we are looking at people who were amazing in the call center, and everybody thought their jobs are going to disappear because chatbots are coming, and, you know, AI is there and stuff like that. We went to these people who knew how to connect with people. We brought them in, and these are the ones who are guiding the chatbot. Because when somebody asks, where is the best popia in Bukit Merah, chatbot is going to be at a loss. But these guys know how to engage. So the point I'm trying to make is, so long as we are willing to work with technology and not get fearful of it, it is something that we can really make it work. Okay, so I will not get into a lot of detail of it. I think you guys will know about it. I'll talk a little bit about the future of economy and how things are going to shape up. This is important for us because, you know, I look after a small service, which is the UPME Center, where we help the Singaporeans who are out of job, who are retrenched, and how do we help them place. It is part of the larger E2I, which is Employment and Employability Institute. We try to serve people. And what we realize that the missed opportunities are those where we are not able to make the right match between what is needed and the kind of skill set we have and the kind of mindset we need. You know, many jobs in startups, for example, when we try to match people, it is not just about the skill set, but it is a lot about the mindset, right? The second piece, which is about children entering primary school, and, you know, 2/3 of them, today the jobs they are going to do then when they have graduated are those jobs that don't even exist today. Today in the Straits Times, there was a cover feature about people who are drone, who are drone pilots, and obviously people who are using blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And I know Daphne quite well. There is amazing work that these people are doing, and the kind of the wealth they are able to amass is quite amazing as well. But it just means, and one of the panelists made this point, that we need to be open about it. Okay. This is, sorry, just go back. Okay, stick to this. So these are the things that the World Economic Forum has been talking about. A lot of it is about critical learning. It's about design thinking. It is about our ability to wrap our heads around who is the person that we are going to serve. This is important for us in the labor movement because the future of work as we see it is not going to be the 9 to 5 jobs that many of us grew up doing. A lot of it is going to be contingent workforce, and what we have been worried about is how to help this contingent workforce, because a lot of the privileges that an employer-employee relationship has, these people don't have, including even access to CPF or Central Provident Fund. So a lot of these things that we are working on, but it is also things that our youth need to be prepared for. Okay, this is another piece that is quite interesting. Aging society is a reality for us, and I used to think for the longest time that Singapore and maybe Japan and maybe Italy are one of the few countries in the world that have got an aging population. And I was corrected because just a couple of years ago, the world crossed the threshold where more than half of the world's population now lives in countries with an aging society. So it is no longer limited to just us. It is really something the world over. But that also means that there is a huge opportunity. The reason Singapore became the place for export of a lot of knowledge is because we knew how to build a city-state. Now, if we know how to work with the aging population and keep all of us productive for much longer, it is again a knowledge that we can share with the rest of the world. And how we are working on it is we need to pull everybody together in how to address some of these challenges. Whether it is technology and technology disrupting the world of work, or whether it is pulling the changing demographic together, a lot of that has to be worked together between the government, the labor movement, the employers, and a lot of us who are part of the workforce. And if we can't do that properly, this has been our secret recipe in Singapore. So when we have leaders coming in from the rest of the world and they tell us that it is amazing to have a union that doesn't go on a strike, and we tell them that is simply because when the economy goes through the global financial crisis and everybody is struggling because retrenchments are happening, the rest of the world, the governments put in money, the quantitative easing, into the markets and hope that will lead to demand generation, and therefore that is going to lead to creation of jobs. And the rest of the workforce is out in the streets. What we do in Singapore is the unions give the government the feedback, the government acts on it, and we create something called the job credit scheme, where we tell the companies that instead of cutting jobs in order to cut your costs, why don't you do this? We will give you the money so that you can keep those people in the jobs. And while you don't need them, the unions are going to train them. And that is how we work together. It is not perfect, but it is a lot of work going on behind the scenes so that we can make everybody employable and to the future. A lot of other stuff happening. I know you will have access to the slides, so you can see through it later. We have been changing ourselves, as I said. As the workforce gets disrupted, how do we disrupt ourselves to be ready? If I could... So we work, and this is quite an anomaly, we work with the MNCs in Singapore, so the MDs and CEOs of Fortune 500 companies that are based here, in order to figure out what are the skills that are going to be needed 2 years down the line, because they are really at the cutting edge of that. And then working at the back end, our E2I, our NTUC Learning Hub, and a whole part of the ecosystem, we try to train our people up. Okay, so I will come to just this slide to summarize my thought. I think it is very important. Yesterday, I was on a speech with Dato Sri Idris Jala, who was part of Shell, and then he turned around Malaysian airline system, and he went on to try to get the Malaysian government rid of the debt. Of course, that was a very difficult thing for him to do. But he shared something very interesting, and he shared that if you really want to make it to the future, it is very important that you see for yourself a dream that is so audacious that you yourself will just laugh at it. And you will say, there is no way this is possible. There is absolutely no way that is possible. But if you can have that dream and you can see yourself in that frame and you can begin to work towards it, maybe you would not reach what an Olympic gold medalist can reach, but you will certainly reach to the best of your potential. And having something like that is going to be critical to how far we can go. And often we are the ones who are putting caps to our own abilities. So that is where I'll leave you with. And I wish I could share with you a lot more, but it's great to be with you today. And if you want to keep the conversation going, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook, and I'll be happy to engage with you. Thank you very much.